I've been caused to wonder lately if we have been living under martial law. I mean, how would we know? Would they announce that? Is it possible to have a version, like a secret implementation of martial law? I don't know. I'm back at the Central Park Zoo. I like this Central Park Zoo. I'm not really in the zoo. I'm just kind of at the peripheral here. Periphery. This is a fun zoo to go to. It's not the most complete zoo. It's not a full featured, it's pretty small. And then polar bear died a few years ago and they did not replace it. I think it hated being there, the polar bear. But anyway, the martial law thing, what am I talking about? A lot of people have been noticing this dust up with General Flynn. I think I spoke about it yesterday or the day before. People know that I have been kind of questioning Felix Sater, and I've been on these questions for a long time. A lot of people have seen the video where I went to a Mike Lindell event and was speaking to Patrick Byrne. And for some reason people think like, oh, you know, Jason is targeting MAGA. Why is he doing that? Everybody likes Patrick Byrne and General Flynn. And so, you know, they're good guys. Don't target them. But I'm not targeting them. Like the people who say that to me, I was also fooled by these guys initially. I had a very good impression of them. Just this morning or maybe last night, I put out that interview with Patrick Byrne from 2000, when was it, 2020? Yeah, it must have been 2020. I think it was like October, or maybe it must have been October 20, yeah, I think it was October 22nd, 2020. Right, because I was looking at it yesterday and I was thinking, wow, it's just remarkably close to the time when Adam Sharp went on CNBC on October 28th, 2020, 2 weeks after the entire kerfuffle over the New York Post story getting suppressed on Twitter, which Twitter's former CEO, Jack Dorsey, has now formally said was a mistake to do. So they've acknowledged that Hunter Biden's crack-fueled laptop was his, that it was authentic stuff that the New York Post had there and that Twitter kept off. And the weird thing about Adam Sharp going on CNBC on October 28th, 2020, is that he hadn't worked for Twitter for 4 years. Why is he on there? He's the CEO of the Emmys. Why are they still asking him about Twitter? It causes me to think that he remained quite involved with Twitter, at least until October 28th, 2020. And I say, even later. I don't like that guy, Adam Sharp. But I didn't just decide I don't like him and start writing big articles about him. It took me a long time to write that Twitter coup. I encourage people to read it if you haven't already. You can read it for free. It's on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. That's free to go to, free to read. You can sponsor the show there if you like. You can also go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and it's also free to subscribe there. Will this thing break some of these tunnels are problematic with live streaming. Whatever, we'll try it. Let's just monitor the signal here. But you can see a video version of the Twitter coup on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. Oh yeah, I put it on Twitter itself, on X. But it's hard to find stuff on X. Hopefully they'll do something with searching past stuff. But I have a feeling that part of the way X was set up was to make it hard to find stuff on there, because if what I'm saying is correct, and again, these are allegations based on information and belief, some people see Crowdsource the Truth and think that that means that I know the truth and I'm like dishing it out or charging people for it or something like that. Yeah, see, it didn't. Let's see if we can make that continue. That'll be sad. That did break the broadcast. Hopefully I didn't turn off there. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway. Damn it. Adam Sharp, right, he's talking about Twitter. He's talking about Twitter when he works for the Emmys. Why? Why does he still care about Twitter? Well, I would say it's because the Emmys are an absolute front. A no-show job, or not a no-show job, he's definitely doing the job, but he barely does anything in that job. You know, we know that he's barely paying attention to that job because the entire time he was doing it until very recently, ESPN was putting in fake names for people and getting Emmys for people who don't exist. Damn it, now it's really losing the broadcast. I hope this doesn't cut off. Recover. Am I still here? Look, we have ducks. I got good advice from somebody. I walked too close to a Brooklyn duck, but maybe those ducks are used to getting, I don't know. But he said to be careful, those ducks are dangerous. The Canadian geese are dangerous and that they can peck you and break a bone. That was good advice. I think I sort of knew that, and also inherently kind of generally don't mess with feral animals, even if they're just ducks. It really doesn't want me to broadcast today for some reason. That's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of things that they do. I don't know why that's not working, but hopefully the recovery feature, I caught it quick enough. When I see that message, usually I can recover it. So Adam Sharp is there telling them on CNBC on the same exact day that Jack Dorsey is testifying in front of the Senate. Wouldn't you not want to get involved in that if you didn't work for the company anymore? It's like, oh boy, let me just focus on the Emmys. And by the way, ESPN was stealing Emmys in 2020, and he's more focused on Twitter than he is with the friggin' Emmys. It's ridiculous. But he's telling them that we need to be able to censor disinformation on social media platforms because this is where the influence is, and this is where foreign influence actors are going to. And that he wants it to be able to flourish so that things like Black Lives Matter, which is relevant today on George Floyd Day. Everybody gets hot sometimes, you know. He thinks that Black Lives Matter and the Arab Spring flourish beautifully, manifest, I think he said, beautifully on the platform. I mean, it's clear that they're using it for color revolutions. Now, wait a minute. I put out a video this morning, which was an excerpt from the first X Spaces, Twitter Spaces. I was invited by Trash Discourse and Jen Lawrence to participate in their Twitter space. Thank you to you two guys for letting me do that. People who want to listen to that little excerpt. It's kind of nice because that was a very lengthy Twitter space, and I think there's a number of things to be excerpted from that for people, because 4 hours is a lot to digest at once. But if people go, if you're not following me on Twitter, on X, you can go there at JG_CSTT. And thanks to all the new followers, that video of me telling Norm Eisen what's what, it's up to 1.5 million views as of the time of this live stream. And even better than that, it has almost tripled my X follower account. And I want to thank everybody who's following. And by the way, it's not important because, ooh, I got a big social media account now. It's important because that means the information that I am broadcasting on these social media accounts will get to a lot of people. And this is exactly the reason why these same criminal scumbags I'm telling everybody about have worked so hard to destroy Crowdsource the Truth because they don't want people to hear this information. If I was talking about nonsense, they would allow that to grow and grow. It's that I'm hitting right at the heart of this criminal lawfare conspiracy. And it's not because I'm a genius. I didn't sit down and decide to spend thousands of hours on this the way someone might create a Felix Sater research.com blog. I didn't do that. I didn't decide that, hey, I'm a patriot and this is the most important thing I can spend my time on, so I better do it and put it out to everybody for free. No, I'm a guy who spent the first 44, whatever, years of my life. Well, I was a kid at first, baby, but my professional career for over 20 years, I was a cinematographer and a director, and I was specialized in stereoscopic 3D. I thought that was fun and great, and I made a good career for myself at that until that industry collapsed and I needed to find something to do. New job. Nobody was interested in hiring a 3D expert who was 45, and I had to come up with something. So knew how to make videos. Everybody knows this story except for that girl, Julie Lewis. I want to talk about her a little bit. She's a really unimportant and extremely unintelligent person, but she's injected herself into my area here. That was part of the reason why I played that X Spaces video this morning. If you missed it, I really do encourage people to check it out, because who this person is, Julie Lewis, I don't really know her. I don't know her at all. In fact, I just saw her on the internet, and I explained this to her in the Spaces conversation, that I became interested in Felix Sater when I discovered that I knew he was the only other client of an attorney that I had hired by the name of Jonathan Snyder. But it was only after Jonathan Snyder deceived me, committed malpractice, destroyed my position in the case, took all my money, and withdrew. He had to know that that was going to leave me in a position, virtually impossible to get a replacement attorney. No one wants to become the captain of a half-sunken and still sinking ship. He knew that. He also knew that I had no money, because we had gotten to the point where the cost of his representation was a discussion. And I guess he decided that that was the right time. Wait around till you drain all the money, screw up the case a couple of real good ways, then withdraw, and boom, Jason's sort of screwed. But I told people I found Felix Sater's testimony before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence when I was looking into Peter Smith, who interestingly is also very related to General Michael Flynn. The whole story about Peter Smith, General Flynn, is inextricably intertwined in that story. And now separately, we were looking at this the other day, where Flynn unblocked me after, I don't know, maybe years of blockage. What we need to do is revisit this. Look, he didn't unblock me to talk about Norm, even though that was the video that was trending and getting 1.5 million views. He unblocked me to talk about this video where I confront Andrew Weissman. And in that video, that's the video where Weissman says that he doesn't know who Felix Sater is. Now, what I'm going through here, this is the 990 for Flynn's nonprofit, or one of their non-profits, the America Project. And what these documents are, these are public documents that I got from the IRS. Or maybe these are from ProPublica, but they file them with the IRS. They're public. Anybody can get them. Scrutinize what I've put there. Don't just take my word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it, but I'm telling you, those are 990 filings filed ostensibly by Joseph Flynn or some accountant hired by Joseph Flynn, because he is the director of the thing. On the board of directors, he's in charge. He's also General Flynn's brother. So when I'm asking, these aren't vague, stupid questions. It's the same question, very precisely posed, that I've been asking for a long time. You dropped your money, bro.
Money?
Underneath you. There's $1 right under the bench. It looks like it's yours. That guy's in bad shape. Wow. But anyway, yeah, what those 990s show us is that Joe Flynn, as a director, I think that's from 2021, was paid $0. And for the same, according to the document, sort of position, also a director, Patrick Byrne is paid $65,000. And people are like, oh, why do you care? What's the difference to you? I don't care, and it doesn't make a difference to me except for the fact that I've donated money to Flynn, and initially I trusted him, but he seems to be lying. And I wouldn't have even looked at this at all except for the fact that when I made a comment that Stephen Biss, another lawfare operative and criminal who had been trying to destroy my life since September 2017 by filing fake nonsense that I had to deal with, and that cost me a lot of money to fight. I was pro se, but I had to travel to Virginia several times, hotels, car fare, documents being printed and mailed, and at that time I had to FedEx them to the court to get them on time, and there's a lot of money spent, a lot of time spent. That's really it, is my time. I can't be reporting on these guys or researching this stuff or building Crowdsource the Truth while I'm busy dealing with their stupid, nonsensical lawsuits. And I believe that that is their purpose, sort of same thing that they're doing to Trump. But see, it's not just about idly wasting your time, because that makes it sound like sort of just a nuisance or an inconvenience that, who cares, you know, whatever. The goal is, once they get you in court, there's a lot of jeopardy for you there, because even if you haven't committed a crime, once you're in court, you can start getting sanctions against you and gag orders and all kinds of things that if you violate them, you can be in contempt of court, and then you can go to jail. And then, once you're in jail, they can have somebody start a fight with you, and then now, even if you don't get killed, from jail, you could be charged with assault, felony assault, who knows what. Next thing you know, you've got somebody like Andrew Weissman in your face saying, why don't you just sign this agreement and cooperate with us, and you can be out of here in a week. Now, for somebody like me, the conversation would be something like what they said to me initially. Hey, you've got a great YouTube show here. Why don't you do it for us instead of Google and Zuckerberg? And when they said that to me previously, the us was a blockchain-driven, cryptocurrency-backed social media, platform called Steemit. And I could tell it was nonsense that I did not want to get involved in, and they didn't like that. So when I told them I wasn't interested, they put me on the "Okay, we're going to destroy you" program. That was all the Robert David Steele, Stephen Biss, that first fake lawsuit. I know this sounds like old hat stuff to a lot of people who have been watching Crowdsource the Truth for a while, but this extremely stupid, malicious social engineer, this woman, Julie, she's brought it up again. So it's important that we talk about it, because you see, unlike Michael Flynn and Norm Eisen and this dumb woman, Julie, when people ask me questions, I'll answer them, even if they're idiotic. And I'm not necessarily going to give them the answers that they're trying to provoke. I'm going to give them true answers. And so what Julie has done, well, let me give you a little bit more background before we talk about what she's done. There's going to be a bunch of people watching who haven't seen the Twitter Spaces, but basically Julie is the creator of this Felix Sater research blog. I found her years ago when I first discovered Felix, contacted her on Twitter, and wanted to talk to her about Felix Sater, in good faith. I wanted to find out what she knew, share with her what I knew, crowdsourcing kind of, And I would think that most independent journalists, and not that I would think, in my experience, most independent journalists and normal people who are operating on the internet they do that. They want to communicate with other people. I mean, the idea is, she said to us, she spent thousands of hours creating that blog. So, okay, that means you're super interested in this subject. I would think if somebody contacts you and says, hey, I got some information about Felix Sater, he's using the same attorney as me, that you might say, well, gee, that's intriguing. Let me speak to this person and see what they have to say. I always go back to examples from my 3D company because it was so much of my experience prior to Crowdsource the Truth. But, you know, people would call me about 3D stuff all the time. And I'm running a 3D company, so when somebody would call me to talk about, you know, equipment loans or whatever, I might not be interested in talking to that person. There's certain people that you might say, yeah, thanks for calling, goodbye. But when somebody calls to talk about something 3D, I would at least talk to them, spend a moment trying to vet, is this a potential client? Is this a potential collaborator, future employee? What does this person want to talk about? What do they know? Do they sound like they know what they're talking about? Is this nonsense? You can vet people pretty quickly. You're doing this yourself in your own life all the time, and you determine if someone is worth your time and attention or not. But Julie didn't want to do that at all years ago when I contacted her. She just was rude in my perception, or perhaps acting in a manner that's consistent with someone who's trying to put out a false story and is encountered by someone who's talking about pieces of the truth that she wants to hide. I'm not saying that's definitely happening. I'm saying I see an increasing amount of evidence that causes me to believe that that's what's happening. You might look at that same evidence and come to a different conclusion. That's the amazing thing about this. So crowdsourcing the truth, see, it's also not a popularity contest. It's not what does everybody in the crowd think is true and take a guess, and the most popular outcome will be the answer. That's not what it is. I'm also not a wedding DJ where people say, hey, you investigated this thing about Felix Sater and Michael Flynn. How about this child trafficking thing over here? Obviously, child trafficking is a terrible thing and an important subject, but there are so many terrible things going on in the world right now and so many important subjects, I can't cover them all. And I don't know, maybe if I had a kid who was kidnapped, that would be the most important subject to me. But right now, it appears I've got the FBI, the DIA, the PLO, the NYPD, and half of the Southern District of New York up my ass. So until that problem gets solved, I'm not able to just look into whatever people send me. See, people who understand crowdsourcing do things like send me short, informative emails or direct messages or whatever that says things like, hey, I was just watching your video about Felix Sater, and the redacted name in the transcript is Milton Blaine. Here's another document where he talks about Milton Blaine. And it's like, hey, thank you. That is super helpful. I didn't know that. And now the story is moved forward. That's what crowdsourcing is about. And sometimes I put things out hoping that somebody will see it and know more about it than I do and send me some kind of message that leads to the next clue or, you know, advances where we're going with all this. So it was really interesting that Michael Flynn decided to unblock me to talk about the video where I confronted Andrew Weissman at NYU Law. So if you haven't seen that video, check that out. It's on X as well. People can follow me on X. And what's important is what I'm speaking to Andrew Weissman about. So remember, Andrew Weissman is currently a professor at NYU Law. Previously, he was the FBI General Counsel, and he was an assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York. He wrote a book called Where Law Ends, and he said a lot of stuff in that book. He said Valerie Caproni was his mentor, and he mentioned Felix Sater 11 times, and he told Robert Mueller, according to this book, He told Robert Mueller to bring in Felix Sater as a cooperating witness. That's all it said in the book, to my recollection. Against who, for who, I don't know. We got to ask Andrew Weissman about that. But to say that I'm lying about any of this, I'm not. I read it in the book. This was in the book. Maybe it's incorrect, but again, that's an issue to take up with Andrew Weissman. I'm just telling you what was written in the book. Hey, look, dancing rabbits. I think those are left over from Easter. It's summer, basically, in New York. It's very nice today, so it's nice to be in the park. But I'm talking to Andrew Weissman in that law lecture, asking him if the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was aware that Weissman had signed 2 agreements with Felix Sater. Now, that's another thing that Julie wants to challenge. She says there was no secret agreement with Andrew Weissman to frame Trump. Now, I never said the secret agreement was specifically to frame Trump. I just said in 1998, Weissman and Sater signed an agreement, a cooperation agreement, while Weissman was the U.S. attorney at the assistant U.S. attorney at the Eastern District of New York. And then there was another agreement signed between the two guys in 2017, I think September. Electric bike in the park, right by me. And there's 2 agreements that are signed, and she was saying, no, 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 I have the agreements. I don't know what to tell you. The Intercept wrote a whole story. And there's a letter too. There's another letter that I haven't even gone into, where the letter describes why they should be giving lenient treatment to Felix Sater and whatever. This guy's got all kinds of legal cases that he gets jammed up in, and then he gets letters written for him about why he should have lenient treatment. So the issue at hand is that this Julie Lewis person is just super interested in convincing people that I, Jason, am lying about something, but she can't quite tell you exactly what it is. Because, see, initially, she started saying, oh, Jason is lying, and he won't even debate me. So that was on Twitter last week, or earlier this week, or whatever. So I just immediately said, what the hell are you talking about? I'll debate you. She's blocked me now, so I don't know if people can still see this. Maybe people can see it and I can't. I'm not 100% sure how the Twitter blockage works. But I said, I'll debate you. Send me a DM and I'll send you a Zoom link and we can do a debate on my show or, wherever. And we'll put it on Twitter, we'll put it on YouTube, we'll put it on Rumble and Odyssey and all the places. And she resisted that. So eventually she did send me a DM and I sent her the Zoom thing. And then she said, no, why do we have to do it on Zoom? Why don't we just do it on Spaces? And I said to her, listen to me, stop changing the parameters. We're gonna have a conversation about this on Zoom and we're gonna broadcast it everywhere and that's it. And so she's just arguing with me back and forth all day. This was, like the day after I interviewed Felix Sater in the park. And it's super interesting because she was not interested in speaking to me about anything to do with Felix Sater before. And she's told us since then that she's never met Felix Sater. So if you've spent all this time creating a blog about a guy that you never met, and then now here, it's not like this guy is Tom Cruise. I don't think people are interviewing him and putting out new nuggets of information about him every week. You would think if you were the one person on earth who's in charge of putting out the Felix Sater research blog, and not to do with me, I'm not saying she should have been interested in me, but some person comes along with new information about it, you'd think you'd at least want to talk to that person. And I mean, maybe she forgot our first interaction, maybe she remembered it and knew that she was rude, maybe she just wants to ignore it and just say, well, hey, I see here that you interviewed Felix. By the way, don't even contact me. The first thing she did was, I put the video out and she says, I'm not gonna watch an hour-long thing. And I was like, well, okay, who cares? Why are you telling me that? She's so antagonistic, it's crazy, but just either watch it or don't watch it. In other words, to me, this is like when I was in high school or college and first became interested in 3D, there was virtually no information available about it anywhere. didn't have the internet when I was in high school in the first couple of years of college. I don't think we had it really at all when I was in college. Like as I was leaving college, the internet was coming around. And so when something would come out about 3D, I would be very interested in reading it. And in fact, I've spoken to people about my sadly gone friend and mentor, Lenny Lipton. I first became aware of Lenny like when I was pretty young, long before I ever met him, because he wrote a book called Foundations of the Stereoscopic Cinema. And when I found out about that book, I had to have my mom drive me all over Long Island to find it, and I finally got it. And I remember I was a little bit, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but it's like a gigantic book like this. And the thing is, Lenny is a physicist. He invented the electronic shuttering 3D glasses that make the technology in the projectors in movie theaters work, and that's what made him rich. Is that my phone? But the point is, the book was super technical. I could barely understand any of it, a lot of formulas, and I thought it was going to be, I don't know what I thought. I thought it was going to be some book that I would open up and it would teach me how to make 3D movies. But I didn't call up Lenny and say, oh, I'm not going to read this. I just like looked through the book. I think I got one thing out of that book that stuck with me through my 3D career, and that was the concept of the distance to zero parallax. I won't go into that right now, but that's my point. Even though it was like not what I expected, not exactly, you know, I wanted some like slim, easy to read book that was going to tell me everything I know how to make a 3D movie, and it wasn't that. But I still valued and even treasured that book. Did I ever have Lenny sign that book? I better check that when I get home. I'd be sad if I didn't. But anyway, my point is, if you're super interested in something and something new about it comes along that you didn't know about, why is your first response to be a bitch to the person who made it when you have no need whatsoever to contact me and draw my attention? I don't understand these people who want to draw my attention to tell me they're not interested in what I'm talking about. It's contradictory behavior, and that's the type of stuff that makes me think that the person doing it could be a social engineer. There's lots of really difficult people with personality problems and behavior problems who do weird things. So I'm not saying if somebody does one of these things one time that they are definitely a social engineer, but there was a lot of weird behavior around this Julie person, and it got weirder as time went on. So she started to say, there is no agreement with Andrew Weissman, and Jason is lying, and he won't even debate me. Then I said I would debate her. She kept kind of like repeating the same lies. I mean, again, it's a little difficult for me to remember exactly what she said because I didn't capture these tweets, and now she's blocked me to make it a little more difficult to go back to. But after she blocked me, I presumed our debate was canceled because there was really no way for me to directly communicate with her. Isn't that a strange instrument? It's weird. So I was invited by Trash Discourse and Jen Lawrence to participate in their Twitter spaces. That's becoming a very common thing, a migrant family just sitting there waiting for money. They asked me to participate in their Twitter spaces about Norm Eisen because a lot of people are pretty interested in this 60-second video that just consolidates exactly what these lawfare scumbags did into an easy-to-understand idea for people who might be confused about what's going on. It really makes it quite clear. And see, if Norm would have stood there and said, hey, Jason, you're not an attorney, and there's facts and details about this that you're not aware of, let me explain this to you so you can understand how what you're saying is incorrect and here's the correct answer. That's very different than running away like a bitch and lying to the cops and saying, oh, this guy's harassing me. See, there are some stupid British people who have seen that, Clive, and have said, you are harassing him. Okay, you're talking about the Oxford English Dictionary definition of harassment. Anything bothersome could be harassment. But When you go tell a cop, this person is harassing me, you're talking about the criminal statute under New York consolidated laws, and I'm not an attorney, but I've read it, and there are elements to harassment which did not meet what I was doing, and fucking Norm is a lawyer, so he should know that before he deliberately goes lying to the cops to get me jammed up. I focus on it the same way I focus on assholes riding bicycles on the sidewalk because it's a problem. And they're gonna hurt somebody with that. And it's what Norm does all the time. He lies to authority to get people he doesn't like who are bothersome to him handled out of his way. If that cop had handcuffed me and dragged me away, Norm would have loved that video. I certainly wouldn't have broadcast that. I probably would have lost the phone if we ever would have seen that video at all. And 1.5 million fewer people would be aware that Norm is a liar and a professional scumbag. So it's fun and everything to razz these guys and publicly embarrass them. But really what's important is hopefully the 1.5 million reach of that video will cause it to land in front of someone who can actually do something about it. Now, there's a lot of people who will say, oh, nothing's gonna happen, so that's fine. Those people, I don't understand why they even get out of bed in the morning, but I'm not like that. I try to be optimistic. When engineers at Panasonic and Apple Computer told me there's no way you can take apart 2 DVX100s and 2 Mac Minis and remove all of the ports and connectors on the Mac Minis and hardwire the analog to digital converter in the Panasonic camera to the USB interface on the Mac Minis and make all that mess into a solid state recording 444 color uncompressed 3D camera. And I said, well, yeah, I agree, it'll be difficult. And it was, but I did it. So if I listened to those people who said, oh, nothing's gonna happen, you're not gonna be able to do it, there would be no 3DVX3, well, 3DVX, then 2, 3, 3.5. Hey, you guys are hilarious. The point is, I don't listen to people who tell me, oh, nothing's gonna happen, you're not gonna be able to do it, do this, do that. Crowdsource the Truth is not about directing me what to do or giving me your opinion of what I said to Norm. I'm not talking about people who say, hey, that was a great video. I appreciate kind compliments and encouragement. That stuff is nice. But it's sort of like the whole, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. These people who want to tell me, particularly from England, how I should behave towards Norm. I don't mind cursing at a guy who has lied. He lied right to the cop, right there. So even if he said it politely, what do you think would happen to me if I got arrested by the cops and I wasn't harassing him? I was asking him questions. I think that cop acted the way he did because it was such an absurd thing to say to someone who was obviously acting as a journalist in that moment in the press area that the police were guarding, asking him questions that he obviously didn't like. They don't arrest you for that. But Norm wants it to be. So Julie comes into this space and she wants to focus on the fact that, you know, after she acted like a moron and an antagonistic bitch all day, I made some comment about how I pity her son because he's gonna grow up to be an idiot with her as his mother. I mean, that's pretty close to exactly what I said. People might think that that's not tactful, that that is rude, and that's fine for you to have that opinion. I don't care. You can have that opinion, but you don't have to share it with me because it's not gonna affect the way that I behave. The reason I did that is because, first of all, it's not attacking her son. I would never go near her son. I don't care to know where he is. And if I did, I wouldn't go near him. I'm not going to attack a little boy. I am insulting her by saying that. And the reason I even mention the son is because she makes him a part of her online persona by naming her Twitter account Hunter's Mama 7 and saying she's a wife and a mother. But see, it also tells us a lot. We know what motivates young mothers. They care for their sons. And sons are expensive. They need food and clothing and eventually may go to college. So she's working a job there at the beer store, she told us. Because we got into this whole discussion about, like, how do you not have time to do this debate? if you have time to argue with me all day on Twitter. And that's when she said, oh, because I'm working at the beer store, and called me all kinds of mean names, personally insulting me. So, you know, she wants to be rude and personally insult me, but when I give it back to her, you know, that's suddenly she's a woman and this is her son and it's off limits. But keep in mind, this is not some game. We're not at recess and I'm just starting to insult her. These are people who have destroyed my business, tried to destroy my life. They've stolen 7 years of my life. They're trying to make it impossible for me to earn a living, which is why I tell people to sponsor the show by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. And see, begging is what these people who are laying in the street with signs that say, give me money, that's what they're doing. I'm producing a video program that if people want to watch it, I've got it on a subscription service, and for as little as $3 a month on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, there's a 58-cent Odyssey fee, but if you become a member on there, you're going to get access to a huge library of sponsor and exclusive content, videos that I'm not putting out on YouTube and Rumble and the free channels. And this is the business model. So I am doing sales, but it's the reason I'm harping on this is not only because I want people to sponsor the show, and it's very important because they're trying to destroy me and put me out of business. It's because this is what she attacked immediately. She said, Jason is a liar and a grifter, and he's online begging for money. So when you say that someone is a grifter, grifting is theft by deception. So if someone tells you, hey, if they're standing out here selling, you know, Apple headphones, and you buy them and go home and there's rocks in the box, you know, that's grifting. I mean, it's kind of grifting anyway because they're selling you stolen headphones that don't have a warranty, and they're basically destroying the economy in the world, because if people worked hard to create a computer company and then manufacture things, or to create these luxury brands, Louis Vuitton or whatever they're selling over here, and then these guys just copy it.
That's $80 ever.
It's tantamount to stealing. These guys didn't invent Prada. These guys didn't invent Yves Saint Laurent. Why do they get to profit from it and sell this stuff out here on the street? They're not renting a retail store, paying someone who has a mortgage to own a building. These guys are subverting the economy, subverting our society, and they should be rolled up and arrested immediately, but they aren't being. That sort of thing upsets me, but that's grifting, that's lying, that's stealing. You might disagree with the conclusions that I form from the evidence that we're talking about, but I challenge Julie to cite even one falsehood, one lie, one incorrect statement, and she was not able to do that, which is pretty interesting. So then I put out that video this morning talking all about, you know, the excerpt. It's the excerpt from the Twitter Spaces. And I don't know if it was in response to that or right after that, but she went on like something of a tweet storm here. Remember, she's blocked me, and I consider it particularly poor etiquette. And in fact, it should not be the way that Twitter functions. If somebody blocks you, I don't know how you would do this, but you know, she's blocked me and she goes on lying about me. So, I mean, say whatever you want to say. I'll answer any question, but people should consider the tactics. Is this what an honest journalist will do? But anyway, let's look at some of the stuff. Oh, we got Deadpool now. We got our costume. You got the drunk Deadpool, you got the fat Spider-Man. It's great. Oh, wow. We have a giant hot dog in Times Square today. I'm not sure what that's doing. Are they selling hot dogs there? It smells like French fries. Maybe they are selling hot dogs. These guys are probably doing capoeira or something similar. That's cool. What is this giant hot dog doing here? I I don't think they are selling hot dogs. This is just a giant hot dog. Super weird. So anyway, our friend Julie, the suspected social engineer, she starts putting out tweets, not necessarily counteracting what I'm saying, but tweets about me. And of course, she goes right to the stupid Mario information. She's saying MAGA is targeting Flynn, and Crowdsource the Truth, who she's blocked, is accusing supporters of Trump, General Flynn, of laundering money. What's the difference if he's supporting Trump? I've presented evidence in support of this. So then she shows this article, how a conspiracy theorist closed the port. So people who have been watching the show for a while are going to be very familiar with this story. This is when George Webb Swigert, who I just met from watching YouTube, invited him to join me because he appeared to be doing crowdsourced investigative journalism. But remember, he's the one who told me that there was radioactive material on board the Maersk Memphis and somebody needs to call the Coast Guard. Then it was Stephen Biss and Robert David Steele who brought the first lawsuit about that, and it was George's brother, David George Swigert. He was the one who got involved in this lawsuit. So, I mean, she comes to the conclusion that I am Swigert's brother. I think she's serious in what she's written here because it's not funny. And I mean, if it's supposed to be funny, I don't get it. But it's obviously false. I mean, I don't know how I prove that false other than I have pictures of my family and me from the time I was a baby, and George never showed up until I was, 45. And everybody saw how I sort of met George and began interacting with him. But also, where in that legal document, I don't even think she's read it correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a typo in there that says that. I don't think so. She's got some more stuff here. Oh, no, sorry. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Here's the rest of her tweeting. Right, so she goes to this thing, and she's talking about Valerie Caproni, and then she's not really sure what's going on because she says, in 2018, Judge Valerie Caproni was assigned, and then both Caproni and Judge Aaron. So she doesn't understand what a magistrate is. She doesn't understand how district court works, but yet this stupid bitch thinks she can be doing all this important reporting and that she somehow has the authority to tell you that I am lying, which I'm not. And by the way, she just says, oh, Jason's lying. I say, what am I lying about? She starts showing you lawsuits written by George's brother. So you're telling me this is not a lawfare operative? She goes right to the stupid Mario World vault to get her information? Or I would even bet that stupid Mario Luigi probably contacted this stupid woman and fed her this information and told her to do this. But the point is, I'm addressing it right now. She's saying, oh, Jason shut down the port of Charleston. I did not do that. And this has been investigated by the FBI. And I wish I had this phone call recorded, but it seems like the FBI has some ability to thwart my recording of phone calls to the FBI, because it's happened a few times. And I'm not going to say I never make a mistake when I've attempted to record a phone call, but it's weird for it to happen every time I try to call something. And when I'm really conscious of wanting to record it, it's weird. But I can convey to you that I've spoken to Donald Wood, the supervisory special agent at the Columbia, South Carolina field office for the FBI, which conducted the investigation into this port closure and interrogated George Webb Swigert just before I bailed him out of jail. By the way, there's video of that. I'm not making this stuff up. It's all been preserved, and actually the best place to see the most of this video is on Odyssey.com. odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. They have a very difficult time destroying my videos on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. That's one of the main reasons why I tell people to go there and to subscribe there, because you've got the most legacy content, the largest amount of Crowdsource the Truth legacy content on there, and it's the most economical way for people to become sponsors. So there's a lot of good things about that platform, and they want to delete these old videos so that when stuff like this happens, they don't want me to be able to point to actual evidence. There's the naked cowboy. What's happening, Nate? All these guys driving around over 7 decibels. See, it's like they should be telling all these guys to respect people around them, stop breaking the law, and turn that crap down. Give that guy a ticket. They want to destroy all my videos so that people can't learn the information in them, and so that I can't refer to evidence disproving their claims when they say stupid things like what's her name, Julie, is doing right now. But bad news for them, I have a lot of ways of preserving the videos, and as far as I know, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure every single Crowdsource the Truth video that I've ever made has been preserved. Oh yes, there's another thing in there when she's scrolling through the documents where she's trying to analyze these stupid lawfare cases brought against me by Robert David Steele through his counsel, Stephen Biss, which incidentally, that's the same attorney that General Michael Flynn's brother was using. This attorney who she's now antagonizing me with his idiotic pleadings. I don't remember if it was one written by George's brother or written by Stephen Biss. I don't want to leave. But it's essentially the same thing. I don't even know. They might have been co-writing them together. I have suspected for a long time there's other lawyers involved, because George's brother is pretty stupid. And there have been some pleadings he's filed that seem to differ in their character than the majority of stupid shit that he files. I don't know, that's speculation. But the point is, she goes to this filing and she's talking about how she goes right to the part where the big original Jason Goodman YouTube channel, which had 120,000 subscribers, and any time I would do a video, 10, 20, 60, 100,000 people would see it, the message would get out. Lots of people would hear me ask for them to subscribe on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Lots of people would see this graphic encouraging them to go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and I was earning money. It was great. And they had to know that. In fact, George's brother made all kinds of estimates that were initially insanely high. Then eventually, they were accurate, and then they were low. But they knew. They know in a general sense that if lots and lots of people are subscribed to you on social media, that generally translates into being able to earn a living at it. So they destroyed that channel. And Julie makes a point of talking about that channel being destroyed. And the reason I bring it up now is because they did that as a component of lawfare. What are you talking about, Jason? Because you see, they made the complaint in such a way that it cited all of these different videos. Then they struck the channel and the videos get deleted. And then, in discovery in the lawsuit, they demanded the videos. This is the same exact thing that was done to Alex Jones. And unfortunately for Alex Jones, I was surprised when I learned about this, but I think I understand why it happened, and I hope Alex has changed. I mean, I don't care, it's up to him to do. But when they did this to Alex Jones in the Sandy Hook trial, he said they don't have the videos to produce for discovery because the videos were deleted when the YouTube channel got deleted, and they didn't have access to them. And this opened the door. The court should not have done this. This should have caused the court to attempt to retrieve the videos or cause the plaintiff in that case to subpoena YouTube to get those videos because I do believe that they would have them, but obviously, you know, there's certain points in court where the judge has discretion, and that was one of them. And if it was a judge, if it was me, I would have said, well, we need to go to Google and retrieve these videos. And then if Google didn't have them, I would say, well, because of the circumstance that we're in, you guys can't rely on this evidence because it's not available. I would not find Alex Jones in default, but that is what the judge did. And this was the legal basis. They love this legal basis. Look, it's Fleet Week, I guess. It's not Halloween. So this is what they were trying to do. Julie thinks she's a genius, but she's really just revealing how stupid she is. She can't read the document. I'd like to see what in there caused her. I would still do a debate with that stupid woman because it's just comedy at this point. I think people realize she's a liar, she's a social engineer. Listen to that Twitter Spaces. It sounds to me like she's reciting a well-rehearsed script. And her main premise was that Jason is wrong because if Felix Sater wanted to, you know, flip on Trump or frame Trump or whatever, he was in touch with 18 countries, she said, including the DIA, the FBI, all these things that she rattles off, none of which is a country, and that if Felix Sater wanted to say, oh, Trump is colluding with Russia, lock him up, he could have said that. But this is such a stupid premise that I don't even understand what she's trying to convince us of, because the law does not work in such a way that one guy who's been convicted of multiple things just shows up and says, this guy did something, arrest him, and then they go ahead and arrest him. You kind of need to be able to build a case. Now that guy's testimony could be a component of your case, but what she's describing, it's just idiotic. It's not the way that would work. And again, what I said to her on that Twitter Spaces thing is, let's just take a step back for a moment, because she's miscategorizing everything that I've said. It's another social engineering tactic. To claim I said something that's a slight variation on what was actually said, and then on the basis of that variation, claim that it's not true. So just to clarify what I'm saying, let's take every single thing Felix Sater has said. What do you guys think about the trial that they have Donald Trump on now?
Oh, Lord.
Does it seem legitimate to you?
No, they just need to throw it out.
Doesn't it seem like
they're just doing that because they don't want him in office again.
Right, and doesn't it seem like the legal system is set up for people who are outside of this sphere of whatever, just get shafted?
Yes.
And if you're black, you're white, whatever, if they don't like you, you're out.
Yeah.
Well, be safe, ladies. Be careful
too,
walking
thank
around.
you.
Enjoy the day. Have a good weekend. See, people know what's going on. And you can get into a nice conversation. There's a polite way to wave behind the camera, and then there's an antagonistic way. I can't even describe it, but I could tell that woman was polite, nice little kid with her, and we just get a little conversation on the street. But the point is, let's take every single thing Felix Sater has ever said and accept it as true. The guy just told me the other day he's never lied. I don't believe that, but for the sake of this discussion, let's accept it as true. Nice hat. There's something about that hat. I don't know the name of it, but I think it must be a holiday if he's wearing that hat. I believe that's a special purpose hat. Anyway, let's take everything Felix Sater said as true. He's never lied. I explained it to her on the Spaces. What I'm saying doesn't require Felix Sater's involvement. He could have been placed there by people who handle him and tell him to do things in a compartmentalized way, which he might not even understand at the time that he's doing it. But they cause other things to happen. And I explained this to her. There's no dispute, even from Julie, that Felix Sater and Michael Cohen were in communication about Trump Tower, Moscow. That's Port Authority police. And this was Heartland Brewery, but it's out of business. There's no dispute that those guys were emailing about Trump Tower Moscow. There's also no dispute that Felix Sater has been arrested, convicted. He's hanging out in Afghanistan. He's buying back Stinger missiles from the Mujahideen. He's tracking Osama bin Laden. He is absolutely somebody who the FBI could use an NSL, a national security letter, to investigate you if you're talking to him. Maybe that's the one and only reason he was there, to jam up Michael Cohen, but I don't even think so. Because see, there's something interesting that's come out from all this arguing with and about Felix Sater, and thank you, Julie, for being so stupid. I think Julie works for the Flynn Intel Group, and I think she was hired to create that Felix Sater blog. I can't prove this in court yet, but this is my opinion. I've arrived at this opinion based on information and belief after viewing evidence that I found in the public domain. You might see this evidence, come to a different conclusion. These allegations haven't been proven in court, but I do believe Julie works for the Flynn Intel Group, or maybe something else similar to that. But she clearly has skills. If she made that webpage, why is she working at the beer store? Why not go work for some web development company? She said she was in Ohio. So are people not making websites in Ohio? I think you can earn more money doing that than working at the drive-in beer store. And here's the other thing about her disparaging me for doing sales and encouraging people to subscribe to the exclusive video service that's available to people who go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth and become members for $3 or more. It's up to you. You can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, but she was disparaging me for trying to earn a living as whatever it is you'd like to consider me. Some people say, oh, you're not a journalist. Well, I don't really care about being a journalist. Sometimes I say I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm just a guy walking around with a cell phone asking questions about why things are getting so much worse. And whatever you want to call that, that's what it is. I sometimes call myself a journalist. I sometimes call myself a documentary filmmaker because people want to put these things in, they want to define whatever it is that you're doing. But by the way, there's a lot of people who will say, oh, you're supposed to do this. Don't share your opinion. Don't get involved. Don't tell the cops what to do. How do you know what I'm supposed to do? You don't even know me. So anyway, this Julie person is somebody, she comes along and says I'm lying when I'm not. She says this secret agreement with Andrew Weissman doesn't exist. That was her most persistent thing. The secret agreement between Felix Sater and Andrew Weissman doesn't exist according to her, even though if you just put in Felix Sater Cooperation Agreement 1998, you can see it. It's in the public domain now, and it's signed by Andrew Weissman when he was I think he was the supervisory assistant U.S. attorney. I think supervisory was the title. He's the head assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of New York, signs that agreement, and then, say that's 1998. Here's where the magic trick lies, and this is where we're going to pay it all off. Where's my entrance to the, I'll walk past it. I'm going to get on the High Line down here. Here's where the magic starts to happen. So Julie is very concerned about this agreement between Felix Sater and Andrew Weissman. General Flynn unblocks me, and with his powerful reach of 1.5 million Twitter followers, he wants to let everybody know, hey, this confrontation with Andrew Weissman, this is epic, and I had blocked Jason for my own reasons in the past, but people should watch this, blah, blah, blah. That video immediately got like 40,000 views or something like that. And people are like, wait, Jason, why are you mad at Flynn? He's helping you. He's tweeting your thing, right? Because that's what these guys want to do. They always say, hey, let's let bygones be bygones, and we're all on the same side, and let's be friends. We're not on the same side. Just because this person, and what is Julie even saying there? Hey, look, everybody, Jason's attacking a Trump supporter. Oh no, kill Jason. This is, I mean, what is she even talking about? First of all, she doesn't address any of the evidence. She doesn't say, hey, Jason presents a 990, but here's a problem with the evidence, here's a problem with his conclusion, here's why this isn't valid. None of that, because they know the evidence is bulletproof. And they know what I'm saying is correct. If I had it wrong, the second I brought it up, Joseph Flynn, Patrick Byrne, Michael Flynn, any of these people could have said, what you don't understand, Jason, because you're not a super billionaire, is that whenever you donate $3 million to a nonprofit, you get paid $65,000 by it. He didn't say that, because that's not normal. Any smart person that I've had on the show who knows about these things, when I show it to them and ask them what the hell is going on, they have no idea. And like responsible forensic accountants like Bob Bishop, who people have seen many times on the show, he's not going to come out and say, yeah, they're stealing money. This is just not the way that guys like that, oh no, I made the right too soon. It's not the way guys like that speak. He is very used to operating in a corporate environment where every I is dotted and every T is crossed. I mean, he's a forensic accountant. This guy is looking for you have a decimal point out of place. So he says things like, I would need to speak to the filer to fully understand this, but I can't see any way that this makes sense. And I agree with you, it does look like something untoward could be going on. That's the way a careful person who knows what they're talking about and knows what they're looking at will describe this. I'm here telling you they're stealing money, because I know they are. And if they want to sue me for saying that, I'm ready for them to do that, because what's going to happen, and they know this, which is why I know they won't sue me, is that I'm not just going to say, oh, you're not going to sue me because you're afraid of discovery. These guys are afraid of me deposing them. A deposition, I learned the hard way, is where we go into court and they have to answer questions under oath. And when you ask the director or a member of the board of a nonprofit, why did this person who has no qualifications and is your brother, why did he get paid 158 grand or whatever it is as a reimbursement through an LLC rather than a salary like the other guy? You can't just say, I don't know. You have to know, you're running the thing. And so, I mean, on Twitter, why didn't he ask his brother? Because you see, the answer is if he were honest and he realized, hey, yeah, this does look bad and it's a complicated, confusing situation. Like, see, she's showing everybody all these documents from this lawsuit from Stephen Biss and George's brother. And if you don't know what's going on, you could say, oh, okay, this is a guy who's closing down the port of Charleston. But she can ask me any question, anyone can ask me any question about that Port of Charleston incident. I don't think I closed that out. When I called Don Wood, the supervisory special agent at the FBI field office that investigated that thing, and I found out about him because his name was printed in the New York Times or one of the major articles that was talking about the incident, and he said, the FBI has opened an investigation. That was June 15th, 2017, one day after the thing occurred, which incidentally, June 14th, the day it occurred, is Donald Trump's birthday. So somebody planned that. And I presume they wanted to make that a component of whatever it was that they had planned for me, which I surmise, I don't know, we'd have to ask whoever dreamed it up, but I believe what they intended to do was to use that 2017 incident to explain to the world that we need to censor the internet. And your buddy Jason was poised to be the poster child for internet censorship. I believe, and I don't know, this is my speculation based on all this evidence that I've been looking at, I believe they intended to say, okay, look at this incident. Goodman caused this to occur. We can't allow just individual people to operate independent news channels on the internet. We need journalists to be licensed by the NYPD, just like the press passes down at the court. We need to be able to censor the internet, and we need people like someone who everybody knows who I'm not allowed to talk about, or they're going to find me in contempt of court because of an unconstitutional court order against me that Ivan Raiklan tried to violate. I think he also works for the Flynn intelligence group. He might openly admit that. I think he admitted that he works for the intelligence community. I don't remember the details, but I believe that was what was supposed to happen. And their plan was, see, they want simple evidence that they can put in front of people and make it real easy. Like, here's a hooker saying Donald Trump had sex with her. He's a terrible guy, don't vote for him. And people say, oh my God, porn star hooker, so trashy, I can't deal with this, don't vote for him. But people aren't stupid. Not everybody, at least. And they figured that out, I think. And so for me, what they wanted was, because George spent like 2.5 hours trying to convince me, oh, you know, if this report is correct and there's radiological material on the ship, even one stick of dynamite or a propane can, somebody could turn that into a dirty bomb. It would be a worse incident than 9/11. And the funny thing is, somewhere on some level in my mind, I was thinking, why is this guy who I've known for like a month or two, why is he trying to convince me to call the Coast Guard? Why doesn't he just call them himself? And so I never called the Coast Guard and said the words they wanted me to say. They wanted a voicemail on the Coast Guard, you know, recorded line, or you know, me talking to the Coast Guard guy saying, hey, there's a dirty bomb on the Maersk Memphis. Then they would have played that recording ad nauseum on the news. Rachel Maddow, Anderson Cooper would have said, oh, you know, a very bad man, Jason Goodman, the Port of Charleston bomb hoaxer, created a hoax to get YouTube clicks. We need to regulate news on YouTube. We need to not let people like Jason have a news show. That was the purpose there, I believe. But because they are so stupid, so incompetent, they screwed it up. And I never said that. When I finally did call the Coast Guard, I said, hey, I'm calling about the, and they said, dirty bomb? We already know. So they never had a recording of me saying that. But really, the real telling thing is, years later, when I found video evidence that associates of George and his brother knew about this plan days in advance, clear evidence that they knew, and they freaked out. That was Roy Warren Marshall, AKA Montegraph, freaked out when I called him and confronted him with this evidence. He's a psychopath to begin with, so it wasn't a far journey for him to travel to Crazy Town and freak out. But I mean, it's, you know, it's clear, right? I like Norm running away on the street. You know when somebody is guilty of what you're accusing them of, or you have a pretty good idea. Obviously, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Presumed innocent until proven guilty. But I mean, again, I'm not screaming and running away when Julie brings up this nonsense about the Port of Charleston. I'm happy to speak to her again, except that she would use that opportunity to devolve into a stupid argument that would, you know, it's like you argue with pigs and you're going to get rolling around in the mud. So I called Donald Wood. I've spoken to him 2 or 3 or 4 times on the phone. And the first couple of times he said, this is Donald Wood, FBI, very tough, stoic kind of guy. And, you know, we spoke a few times, and then it occurred to me, why didn't the FBI ever question me in 2017? If I'm the one, according to George and his brother, the only two idiots now that Stephen Biss has stroked out and Robert David Steele is allegedly dead. Julie is the third idiot now who are saying that I caused that. Where did she get that idea? She can't even read the lawsuit sufficiently to understand what's going on in it, yet she, in less than a day, has gone right to the heart of the stupid Mario World theory about this case. And she's pushing the same thing, that Jason Goodman worked with FBI informant Oki Marshall Richards. I didn't even know that was the guy's name at the time. That's another person that George introduced to me, and it's George's brother who's been going on, oh, why is Jason working with this FBI informant? I didn't know the guy was an FBI, but how did they know his name? They're the ones who produced his real name. It seems quite obvious that they were working with him. So see, this is how I know all this stuff about these people, because they've been running their same stupid game on me. And so if this is a play, if this is Lawfare, the musical, you could go back over there to Times Square and you're going to see the production with Hugh Jackman and Meryl Streep, et cetera, et cetera. You might see the same play in Los Angeles with different actors. You might see it in your town at the local theater with, you get what I'm saying. It's the same script, same set, same story, different actors, okay? So they stick Oki Marshall Richards on me. They set up this whole interview with Robert David Steele and George. The next day, all this nonsense with the port happens. And now for 7 fucking years, with idiots like this dumb bitch whose only credential is that she has a functional uterus, keep harping on the same lawfare shit. Julie, you're an idiot. And guess what? You just bought yourself a trip to jail as well. When all of this is said and done, I'm going to make sure that it's known that you were involved. This is not a threat, this is a promise. On the way, I'm going to be looking for an opportunity to involve you in civil litigation. And the stupid things that you've done over the past several days have given me incredibly ample opportunities to do that. So congratulations, you are the winner of The Lawsuit Is Right, and you're gonna get fucking sued, you dumb bitch. It's gonna be great. All the money that you've earned from working for the Flynn intelligence company and working at the beer store, I'm gonna get it. Might take years. You're gonna love the process. It's great. Either you're gonna pay all your money to a lawyer or you're gonna have to learn how to write legal documents like I have. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. So it seems like she's working for them, and it seems like the Felix Sater research blog was a sheep dipping operation. What the hell are you talking about, Jason? Sheep dipping? That is a term of art from the intelligence world that I learned from researching the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald. Maybe people don't know, but when JFK was assassinated in 1963 and they decided within an hour that it was done by Lee Harvey Oswald, they had all this material on him. He had been on the radio talking about Marxism. He had been on TV talking about Marxism. It's weird. It's 1963. Not everybody had a YouTube channel. I don't think everybody even had a TV in 1963. I don't know, I wasn't there. But it was a little bit unusual to be on television in 1963, just because it was new. Newer than it is now. I think a lot more people have been on TV now than had in 1963. But my point is, sheep dipping is when you take a military or an intelligence asset, a wolf, and you create a false background for that person to dip them into sheep's clothing, okay? So Felix Sater stabs a dude in the face in 1991, and he gets arrested and prosecuted and all kinds of trial and whatever. And we don't really know what happens in detail until 1998. Now he is paroled. He doesn't serve the full sentence on that felony assault incarceration. He said something the other day that George Pataki loved him. How does George Pataki know a random douchebag in jail in Brooklyn for stabbing a dude in the face? I don't know. But according to him, Pataki loved him. I begin to wonder, because it's super implausible to me that a public school dunce from Brooklyn who goes to Pace University and becomes an unimpressive boiler room stockbroker, churn and burn kind of moron, not much different than many people I went to high school with, except he's fluent in Russian in the early 1990s. Now, what people who are young or not from New York or not remembering this may not know is that, like, when I was in high school and everything, there were no Russians around. You had the Soviet Union and the United States, and there was, like, the Brainiac class in my high school somehow went to the Soviet Union on a trip. And also Billy Joel did that concert. So like 1988, 1989, things were kind of, you know, but people weren't, you wouldn't just like go to Russia, and Russian people weren't coming here. You wouldn't walk around and hear people speaking Russian or see Russians or whatever. And then I remember when I got to college, it was like, wait a minute. And even particularly after I graduated college, it was like, what the hell, there's all these Russians around. And that was because of perestroika. When communism ended and the Berlin Wall fell, travel restrictions were lifted and people started traveling around. And, you know, there was a Russian diaspora in Brooklyn, and that was what Felix Sater was part of. But it's basically acknowledged that there was an explosion in organized crime in the early 90s, Russian organized crime, particular problem for the Eastern District of New York, where Valerie Caproni and Andrew Weissman were. And I just wonder, you know, if you scoop up that homeless guy who didn't know he had dropped his last dollar under his filthy, you know, whatever he was doing there, that guy stabs somebody and kills them, or stabs them in the face and creates nerve damage sufficient to get a felony charge, they're going to take him to jail, of course, but I don't know that they're too interested in that guy. He doesn't seem to be able to even manage his own saliva. But if they get a guy who's college educated, knows about sales, smart, fluent in Russian and English, just had a bad night out. Too many vodkas, Felix. Now that you've sobered up and you're looking at 5 years in jail, how would you feel? This is speculation right now. This is me putting myself into the moment. Felix Sater, how would you feel about getting out of jail early? Governor Pataki would like to offer you a pardon. But see, what we need you to do is, you're going to be a translator for a DIA intelligence team that's going to be inserted into Afghanistan. That's a place where Michael Flynn has a lot of experience. Michael Flynn, by contrast, he's quite a bit different than the people I went to high school with. Felix Sater's pretty similar. Brooklyn's not that far from Long Island. And I'm sure I know guys who worked at the same stock brokerage firm that he did. I don't know any guys who at the age of 18 went into military intelligence, but that is what Michael Cohen claims to have done. And Operation Cyclone went on until 1992. Felix Sater is first in jail in 1991. We don't really know what happened to him until 1998 as far as his interactions with the cops or the Department of Justice or the FBI or the DIA. So here's where the rub is. And here's why Michael Flynn and his employee or associate or whatever she is, Julie, are just so stupid. It's amazing to believe that they are involved in intelligence at all. Let's take every single thing Felix Sater has ever said is true. He was adamant that he's not an FBI UCO, and that was my mistake. I made that presumption because of these agreements with Andrew Weissman and the Robert Mueller investigation. These are FBI scumbags. But Felix says no, he was a DIA asset, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and here's where they have a problem. The DIA is Army intelligence, that's the military. I'm a US citizen, I'm a civilian. I've never been in the Army. I'm not a citizen of any other country. I've visited many other countries, but I've never been affiliated with any other country at all. And frankly, most of the rest of the world could evaporate, and as long as the United States and frankly New York City remain, I'd be fine. People know where my interests lie. And so I'm getting a little bit too with the flourishes here. What was I getting at? Felix Sater and Michael Flynn. Right. So Felix tells us he's DIA. He's recruited by Milton Blaine from the DIA. Fine, I don't challenge that. DIA. So you are a Defense Intelligence Agency asset. You're a military intelligence asset. How is it that Andrew Weissman at the Department of Justice can bring a military intelligence asset who, Felix Sater has already testified to Congress about the years of military intelligence work that he did. How can a military intelligence asset be brought into my civil lawsuit? He's Snyder's client. Snyder dumped the case. My opposition there was Adam Sharp, who was Twitter's first US government liaison. He's on CNBC talking about Twitter years after he's left there. He writes his PR Newswire press release announcing his resignation from Twitter on December 28th, 2016, the same exact day that Ben Wittes sends an email to James Comey all about Peter Smith. And yesterday, before he blocked me, Lieutenant General retired Michael Flynn says he's never spoken to Peter Smith. That's the first time he's ever addressed that question. Why was the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post so adamant that General Flynn was involved? Now, I don't necessarily believe him that he has never spoken to Peter Smith, but it's possible. We need to basically get Ben Wittes, Michael Flynn, Andrew Weissman, Felix Sater. We need to question each of these guys under oath. And when I say we, I'm talking about a legitimate law enforcement, not the FBI as it exists currently, but somebody needs to ask these guys questions. I've got a limited ability, Norm Eisen is not in a deposition when I approach him on the street and start asking him a bunch of questions that he doesn't want to answer. So my point is, these guys don't want to talk about Peter Smith. They don't want to talk about the secret agreement between Andrew Weissman and Felix Sater. And I mean, this is maybe more of a question. I mean, again, crowdsource the truth doesn't mean that I know the truth and I'm doling it out. I'm not charging people to hear the truth. I'm charging people to watch videos that I produce. If you find them entertaining or informative or just something to pass the time and you feel like getting a subscription to my premium video service, this is the product that I'm offering. But I'm trying to find the truth. And it's a fun mystery to unravel that also can help create a better future for us, because if we're run by liars, that's no good. And we've just had Joe Biden announce that he's going to have some kind of special speech after Donald Trump is convicted in this kangaroo court. We are just on a dangerous overspeed nosedive towards tyranny. And so that raises the question of, are we under martial law? And what I'm saying is, if the military and their intelligence assets are getting involved in civil litigation or even interacting with civilians at all, How the hell is that allowed? I'm not some army, like what is the DIA doing dealing with me? So I was able to speak to an old friend who's been a JAG officer in the military, and he's a lawyer. People have seen him on the show. It's Senator Richard Black. He's such a nice guy and so smart. So he told me about this thing called the, what's it called again? Yeah, Posse Comitatus Act. And this basically says that the military cannot crap around with civilian stuff. This is something that was passed, he was telling me, you know, after the Civil War, where they were worried about certain people in Congress from the South maybe trying to do something screwy. But see, this seems to be what's going on. And this whole entire lawfare coup, see, you start to see how dangerous and insidious this is as we go down this road, because that's a law right there, that Posse Comitatus thing. And I mean, you know, you can go back and read the letter of the statute, but if you're a fucking weasel like Norm Eisen, you're gonna read that and you're gonna say, well, you know, what it says is if there's an act of Congress and MMA, so we can come over here to the Patriot Act, and like there might be something, some precedent in place where they can decide in a similar manner to how they use the national security letters, just like they've decided that Jason Goodman is a conspiracy theorist and everything he says about Valerie Caproni is frivolous. She's the judge, of course, deciding that. Maybe they decided, oh, well, if you get a national security letter that says Jason Goodman is a conspiracy theorist, then we can use military intelligence assets to screw up his civil lawsuit and take all of his money. This is all speculation, because I don't know. This hasn't been proven in court yet, Julie. But it will be, or I'm gonna die in the process of doing that. And I'll probably live another maybe 30 years, I think. At least, I hope. It's just a long time. It's a long time. Yeah. So, that's what's gonna happen there. Julie is a fatally stupid individual who, if she knows what's good for her, she's going to retract everything that she said about me, and she's going to admit that it was all made up specifically to smear me, but that she realizes now that that was the wrong thing to do and that she didn't know what she was talking about. Obviously, George and David Swigert, they are brothers. I'm not related to those idiots. They appear to be the sons of an Operation Paperclip Nazi. That also hasn't been proven in court yet, but the evidence that I've seen in the public domain increasingly makes me think it's true. It also explains how they might have become involved with military intelligence. And in that stupid book that George wrote about his father, which if you're unfamiliar with the term hagiography, I recommend you check out the book. But at the end of it, he talks about how the proof that George Henry Swigert invented the cordless phone is that they wanted to use it to have Nixon make a phone call to the moon lander, which somebody else, completely unrelated to YouTube or any of this, said that doesn't make sense because of the way the phone call would be made and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point of the matter is, when you're trying to prove that you're not a Nazi, associating yourself with Wernher von Braun's mission to the moon, I don't know if that's the best way to do that, but that's what they did. They did that before I ever came up with any of this evidence that causes me to believe that George Henry Swigert is a fucking Nazi. And not the kind of Nazi that people scream when they're wearing their, you know, Antifa stuff. I'm talking about an actual, you know, swastika carrying proud member of the National Socialist Party, a subversive individual who insinuated himself into the US Army, perhaps in a generational way, just like the two brothers are. Because I find it hard to believe The guy was born in 1920. So when he was 10 or 11, did 11-year-old George Henry Swigert go to summer camp run by the German-American Bund? 8 million Americans were part of that before they shut it down, I think in 1935. It was basically Hitler Youth Camp here in the United States. Look it up. German-American Bund. I'm sure it was gigantic in Ohio in 1930. Yeah. George Henry Swigert never made a dime. The brothers are upset about that. Why, Julie should ask herself, why has David, who is not my brother, nor is his brother George, why has he spent 7 years suing me, and 25 years prior suing Electronic Systems Associates, and it's a long list of companies that he's sued, but they're all computer companies and telecom companies that were vying for government contracts. Now, did one of the companies vying for a contract hire these lawfare criminals to disrupt the activities of their competitors by suing them to just give them any kind of edge in getting these hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts? I mean, if you could pay an idiot like George's brother, who's normally sitting in an RV smelling his own ass all day, if you could pay him $500,000 to do something that, you know, locks up your competitor in court or distracts their resources for something and cause them to lose their bid or become disqualified because of something that comes up in court or whatever, I don't know. I'm speculating. I can't say. But the point is, why did this guy bring dozens of lawsuits, thousands of pages of legal writing against all these companies, but never once did he sue Motorola when Martin Cooper and his team patented the full duplex cordless phone? Motorola was the first company to commercialize that. Why not sue them and say, hey, the SEIU union, which incidentally, they were the ones running the anti-Trump protest in the park in the Bronx the other day, SEIU union people, why not sue Motorola and say, hey, the SEIU union people pressured George Henry, putative paperclip Nazi, serial child abuser by his son's own admission. This is a sick, disgusting man who should have been put in jail. Why was he never prosecuted for putting his own son in hospital? Wasn't that Greg? I believe David made a comment that George Henry once beat Greg so badly he had to go to the hospital. How did that not result in a prosecution of George Henry? How was he not able to make even a dime? You know, Martin Cooper, the guy who is the patent holder for Motorola, he also has not become incredibly rich, but he was working for Motorola, and he's confirmed that he did have a work-for-hire agreement with Motorola, and he said it was the best agreement that he ever signed because they paid him very well throughout his career, but even more importantly, they provided him with a lab and resources and other scientists and engineers who allowed him to realize his vision in a way that he never could without all those resources. So that makes sense as to why he never made money from it, but where is the part of the story that makes George Henry Swigert's ridiculous nonsense make any sense? It seems absent, because I think he was an Operation Paperclip Nazi, and part of the deal was you can beat the crap out of your stupid sons and make them bleed and cry and go to the hospital and nobody's ever going to do anything to you. But anything that you invent while you're here in the United States, we keep. I think something like that was going on. Sort of a secret deal with the government, like Felix Sater. We may need to call on you from time to time to do things that benefit us. And because you have this secret agreement where we control your ass, you're going to do whatever we say. So this is what I think is going on. This girl, Julie, doesn't know what she's gotten herself into. She's so stupid, I pity her. and her poor son, who's got an idiot for a mother. It's a sad situation. But I also wanted to point it out because it's the second time that this has happened, that they use a female social engineering operative and they make her child a component of her online persona. So if you say anything like, genetics will dictate that this child will be a moron, they're going to say that's a threat against the child. I make no threat against the child. I don't think anybody should do anything at all relative to Julie. In fact, I don't want anyone to do anything to anyone, and I don't want anybody to take any action whatsoever based on anything I ever say, apart from sponsoring the show on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's a lot of new viewers, and I know that if you're intrigued by what you've been seeing here on the Twitter channel and the other X and the other videos that I've been doing, I know you're going to be intrigued by the sponsor exclusive videos. So, please become a sponsor. Check out that stuff. See, this is not smart. Do not interact with random homeless people on the street. I think that we need to help homeless people and the less fortunate, but you never know. There's a lot of stories I see in the newspaper about people get punched, stabbed, hurt. I just don't think you should do that. But yeah, Michael Flynn, coward, liar. Sorry if that upsets you to hear me say that, but he would have given us a good answer to those questions if there was one. And the fact that he hasn't really causes me to believe that those guys are stealing money, lying to everyone. And there's another thing. So there's a certain type of person that says to me, oh, and that's what Julie was doing. Oh, look, Jason, he's attacking a Trump supporter, saying he's laundering money. Why don't you go and point out, hey, here's this $65,000 payment to Patrick Byrne. Why don't you go interview Patrick Byrne and give us an explanation for how that got there and why I'm wrong to question it? Why don't you go figure out what's going on with Brisa Suaves and why Joe Flynn was paid through that? What's the difference if this guy's giving speeches with Donald Trump? He's obviously a double-cross infiltration agent is what I'm trying to tell you. The guy was the top Army intelligence spy for Obama. Doesn't everything I'm saying sort of make perfect sense? And everything this girl Julie is saying seems to be an absolutely made-up lie. So anyway, I'm not telling people to trust me, believe me. Take everything I say skeptically, look into it, verify these claims for yourself, and come to your own conclusions. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great afternoon and enjoy your weekend. This is an incredibly fluffy dog right here. Have a great day, everybody.